What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you like what you see today. And if you do, make sure to hit that thumbs up as well. And without wasting any more time, let's get right into the topic. I took a lot of notes so I could be, in order with my thoughts, because there's a lot that I want to go over here about stuff that Sega Japan has been tweeting throughout the past few months. Now, earlier this year, Sega Japan Twitter shares a silhouette of what looks like either Akira or maybe a young Sega Sanshiro, and just a message about Sega's 60th anniversary coming up. Now, most people at this point think that a new Virtua Fighter game is coming because the stance is much like Akira's, but in the photo, Akira wears a headband. Now, in this photo, there is no headband that is apparent here. And while this makes sense for a Virtua Fighter, I can see how this would, lean towards a Virtua Fighter, but given more details that have come to light, it kind of strays away from the Virtua Fighter and into something else, which we'll get into now. I will say in this silhouette, although the hair is much like Akira, it's also much like Sega Sanshiro's hair back in the old commercials. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Sega Sanshiro was a character that was a mascot for the Sega Saturn throughout the lifespan of the Sega Saturn. And I will give more details as we go through this video. Now, on March 19th, Sega shares another picture of just a gi. It's just a gi, and the caption says, "Why judo?" Yeah, why judo? That's a good question. Let's keep going. Fast forward to March 25th, Sega Sanshiro's son shows up in a commercial for the 60th anniversary. At first I thought he was just wearing a white jacket over his shoulders because he's wearing a button-up and a tie. So I'm just not paying much attention to this, and I'm looking at it like, okay, he's just wearing a white jacket. But after taking a closer look, it's the white gi from the previous picture of Why Judo. Coincidence? I don't know. Let's keep going. In this video, no products are being shown, nothing really hinted at, so I didn't pay much attention to it at the time, other than, oh, that's cool, they brought back Sega Sanshiro's son, and he's a mascot, that's cool. Not really thinking where it could lead. Not thinking about the gi at all, or what it could symbolize. Now, if we fast forward a little bit more, towards April 22nd, a new Sega Sanshiro commercial drops, which is expected because following the first commercial, Sega Japan tweeted, following episode 1, appearance, which depicts the growth of Sega Shiro, a boy who loves Sega, the secret version will be released in mid-April, and the determination version will be released in mid-May. So, again, at this time, I'm not really thinking too much of it. I'm just thinking, okay, Sega's out here revitalizing old ads. All right, it's pretty cool. This was the second commercial out of a series of 3 that are planned, apparently, and this is the one that dropped in mid-April. So after watching that second commercial, I kind of went back and was like, there's a lot of things that are weird about this. So now I'm gonna point out all the things that I noticed in this commercial, and I'm gonna do it in order as best as I can so I don't lose anyone. So stay with me, okay? The first thing that I noticed is that first it shows a young Sanshiro surrounded by classmates playing the Sega Game Gear. Okay, cool. I don't think too much of this, all right? Then it goes into young Sanshiro wearing the Master System 3D glasses, and I'm like, okay, cool. They're going through all the history of the 60th anniversary of Sega. This is pretty cool that they're doing this. But now here is where it starts to get a little weird. Then it changes to a scene where young Sanshiro's putting on his shoes and a classmate comes up to him and says something to him, and at this point he points to his backpack, which is regular size white Sega Saturn, and his father did a commercial where he was running through the woods training with a giant white Sega Saturn on his back with a controller in the exact same place on his shoulder like his son does in the new commercial. Weird. It's a little peculiar. Now think about this. The dad has a giant Sega Saturn on his back in the commercial, then the son has a smaller version of a Sega Saturn on his backpack. Could this mean something? Could this be hinting at something? Could be, could not be. But let's keep going. Now, this could be total coincidence, but I'm leaning towards it meaning something just because of how much these commercials seem to be planned out. Then after that, things get pretty weird. Remember how I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Sega Japan showed a silhouette of a fighter? Well, at exactly 13 seconds of this video, there is a silhouette of young Sanshiro with the gi most visible and the hair now different, just like the silhouette of the fighter that they showed earlier this year. You following me? At this point, then it cuts to a flashback scene where young Sanshiro and his father in an animated montage of him being trained by his dad. Then, at 18 seconds, it shows a young Sanshiro looking at a book. Two images are clearly visible on the front of this book. It is a Sega Genesis and a Sega Saturn. Keep in mind the Sega Genesis got a mini console released on its 30th anniversary, and I'll get more into that in just a minute. Now, just slightly under that, not very visible, is the corner of a Dreamcast as well, but not the focus of the picture clearly, or else it would have been more visible. I also think that this is possible foreshadowing, but this is all speculation. These are completely my opinions, and this is just how I am interpreting these situations that are unfolding on Twitter and in these commercials. But let's keep going. Now at 19 seconds, there are two Sega logos on the wall, both different, and to his left, there is the Tower of Power. Also, if you look on the desk, there is a figure of Akira in the exact same pose that the silhouette was. Now, I do want to point out one thing. Segata Sanshiro's pose was not like Akira's at all. His was more of like this, like a bear style stance. I don't really know how to describe it, but that was the most iconic stance that Segata Sanshiro used to put on in the old commercials. At 21 seconds, you see an explosion. Now, to anyone unfamiliar with the old Segata Sanshiro commercials, this wouldn't mean much, but in his last commercial, he protects Sega's headquarters by jumping in front of a missile and turning the missile around and launching the missile into space and rides the missile all the way into space and explodes. Pretty dark, yeah, I know. But that was the last Sega Saturn commercial with Segata Sanshiro right before the Sega Dreamcast came out. Now, this is why you see the gi falling to the sun in the newest commercial. Then you see the scene change on to young Sanshiro on his knees yelling at the sky, then a classmate looks off into the distance, it zooms in on her, and she points off screen. At this point, you see what seems to be like an evil Segata Sanshiro shows up with some sort of robotic mask and says something to young Sanshiro, and young Sanshiro responds, and then boom, the commercial's over with the 60th anniversary logo on the screen. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, why do you think that this has anything to do with the Sega Saturn? Well, if we're talking about all of the speculation that I'm going through here, it's kind of peculiar that in this commercial, there are so many things that are reminiscent of the Sega Saturn. The history explained in this commercial stops at the Sega Saturn. Now, this could very well be just because that this is the second commercial out of 3, and the third one may very well go through the rest of the lifespan and cover the Dreamcast. I don't know. But this is where we're at right now, and things seem a little weird to me. So I had to talk about it. So without that third commercial in the picture, it kind of leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Is this foreshadowing for a Sega Saturn Mini? Is this foreshadowing for some sort of collection of games that'll possibly be released on other consoles like Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PC? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any inside sources for this, but it's all very interesting and very, very fun to follow. It's awesome. Now, I will say, with my comment about the Sega Saturn Mini, Sega Saturn is notorious for having difficulties emulating those games. So I don't even know if that's even possible. But if anybody is going to do it, I would assume that Sega would be the ones to do that in-house. They have had really good relations with companies like M2 and doing the Sega Genesis Classic. They went away from AtGames, really, really smart moves. I think Sega's really been on their game lately, and this could possibly lead towards something like a Sega Saturn Mini. Now, I don't know if there's still a market for these mini consoles. You know, TurboGrafx 16 just came out. Sega Genesis had a lot of success with their Sega Genesis Mini, and I honestly think that it would be a missed opportunity if they did not do something like this. Also, going back a little bit, before the Sega Genesis Mini released, Sega was doing a few different things that were reminiscent of the Sega Genesis. They were remaking commercials. They were asking people to share Sega stories. If you go to their Twitter now, they're remaking commercials. They're asking people to send in their Sega stories. I don't know. Seems a little weird to me. It could all be coincidence, but all of this seems to be very reminiscent of what their strategy was going into the Sega Genesis Mini. But again, Sega Saturn is a different story. I know one thing is for sure, this has definitely piqued my interest. I am super interested to see where this goes. If you guys are not following Sega's Japan Twitter, make sure to go and follow Sega Japan. And basically you would only really need to take the tweets that they do. You can copy them, you can paste them into Google Translate and really kind of figure out what's going on there if you don't know how to read kanji. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. Things are definitely strange, but hey, now that I've gone over my thoughts with all of this, I am interested to know what you guys think. Do you think that this is possible foreshadowing for a Sega Saturn Mini? Do you think that I am out of my mind? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know what you guys are excited for. Do you think that this could possibly be a collection of games that are coming? Do you think that this is possibly just, you know, Sega trying to gain interest in the company again? Who knows? This could just be nothing but a celebration of the 60th anniversary and the history of Sega. I thought it was fun to think about all these details. It's a lot of stuff that is being thrown out to, you know, things back when I was a kid playing the Sega Saturn. So these are really cool details to me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, again, consider hitting the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. See you later.